Thank you very much. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, according to where you stay in the world. It's a great pleasure to introduce this panel. My name is Ulrike Meyerhofer. I'm a professor of international business at IAE Nice, Université Côte d'Azur in France. And our panel continues on the sustainable international expansion of small and medium-sized enterprises. Our aim is to contribute to a better understanding about the international strategies of SMEs, the opportunities they can seize, and the challenges that they face. The roundtable offers cross-country perspectives on the international expansion of SMEs, and we will provide new insights on how SMEs invest in foreign markets and perform their international activities. We will attempt to shed new light on the essential role of SMEs in providing jobs, creating value, advancing innovation, and contributing to sustainable development. The objective is also to identify major trends and key success factors of the international expansion of SMEs in developed and developing countries. The insights and discussions are based on surveys, case studies, and the international experience of our speakers. We will attempt to formulate recommendations for policymakers to improve the monitoring of the international expansion of SMEs. So the following issues will be addressed. In which regions do SMEs invest? What are their objectives and what are their strategies? What are the main factors that can lead to successful international expansion? What determines the mode of entry in host countries? Foreign direct investments, exports, contractual agreements. What is the impact of SME investment on local communities in the host countries? Through which channels and how do SMEs contribute to the development of host economies? We have renowned speakers in this panel who are policymakers, practitioners, and academics. And we will have three types of perspectives: institutional perspectives, corporate perspectives, and academic perspectives on these topics. And we will start with Mr. Igor Kalinik, who is the head of sector competitiveness and international development, European Innovation Council and SMEs Executive Agency, European Commission in Brussels. So Igor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ulrike. Shall I share my screen for some presentation? Screen to share. Do you see it? Is it okay? Is it okay? Can you confirm? Well, I hope so. So yes, good evening, good morning,
sorry,
good
Igor.
afternoon. Yes,
you might have two screens. If you can switch the screen. Yeah, we're seeing just the notes side now.
Okay. This was not intended. Now you don't see anything. I don't see anything. How do I? Okay.
I think it was fine before.
In the presentation mode, you have to stop the presentation. There's something that is called presentation mode, and you have to put it as normal mode, monitor mode, or something like that.
Yeah, it's okay now. It's fine.
It's fine. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, this is the.
No, it's even better.
Yes. Now I don't know what is the next one, but there are only 4 or 5. Thank you very much. Sorry. Yeah, we are juggling between Zoom and the other things, tools. And actually, in the Commission, we are not using that the Zoom, so I'm quite new. Anyway, my name is Igor Kalinic. I am head of sector of competitiveness and internationalization at the European Commission, actually at the executive agency. So I was very thrilled, and thank you very much for inviting me for this session, because actually I have had all three of these hats. I worked in 4 SMEs going international. I'm still an academic from time to time, and now I am working for the policy for the European Commission. When we talk about the SMEs, they are really, of course, we just heard before, they're really important. I'm not going to repeat the numbers, 97%, 99%. Backbone in European Union, the 2/3 of the people of staff work in the private sector work for SMEs. So of course, it's very important. And since 2008, actually, the European Commission has come up with a policy called Small Business Act that has been implemented and also developed throughout the years, updated. Just before the academic hit in March 2020, the European Commission came with a new SME strategy, which was basically copying or following the wider industrial strategy that is based on sustainable and digital. So I think that this is really ad hoc here. It's very good thing for this debate. Within this strategy, the role of the internationalization was really recognized. So for the European Commission, also it's very important to stress the internationalization is not going from Germany to Italy within European Union. It's going outside. It's going outside the European Union to third countries. Now, for this event, I actually went and I asked the colleagues to collect all the initiatives and instruments that we have that are ongoing in the Commission, and I was thinking that I would be able to touch more or less upon all of them, but then I realized that there are really a lot. So there are, I call them 11 main initiatives, and then each initiative has specific instruments, and we go to more than 100 specific instruments. Of course, it's not my intention to go through all of them. I will just point on most representative, most important ones for the topic. Next to this instrument, there is one big elephant in the room, which are the free trade agreements. So as you know, the Commission is trying to, European Union is negotiating or has already negotiated a number of free trade agreements with the countries all around the world, from Vietnam, Japan, US has not gone well, so hopefully it will restart soon, Canada, and so on, Mercosur. And in these free trade agreements, the role of SMEs and the attention to the SMEs is very important. There are provisions that are generic and specific for the countries. Why I'm talking about free trade agreements? Well, because actually the tariff rates are really the ones that are harming the SMEs if they want to go international. As somebody was saying earlier, the big companies, multinationals, they know how to go around. For them, it's not maybe that big a cost. They know maybe even how to cut this cost. But for SMEs, it's really important to cut on this bureaucratic burdens. Well, of course, this doesn't come without any threat. So these free trade agreements have to be implemented very cautiously. The countries, every country has to pay attention on the specific ecosystem that is present in that country and how this can be implemented in order to actually improve the situation of the SMEs. An important reason why European Commission is also trying to push the SMEs to go international is the so-called effect of democratization of the society through having more SMEs, which means more spread of the richness, more dynamic society, and also more innovative, which also nowadays brings more sustainability, more innovation, more digitalization. Now I will just go through very few examples. So there are so-called ad hoc bodies. So there are Euro chambers, European Union Chambers of Commerce, or EU SME Center in China, EU Japan Center for Industrial Cooperation. So these are bodies that are in addition to the bodies of the member states, but they are having a coordination or a capacity building role. I would like also to draw your attention on one of these ones, and it's EU Japan Center for Industrial Cooperation. It's called like this because it was founded in 80s, end of the 80s, I think in 1988. And of course, at that time, the focus of industrial international business was on the big industrial cooperation between European Union, at that point 12 members, and Japan. But nowadays, and I know very well this entity because they work directly with my sector, it's basically 100% focused on SMEs. And then we have also one very important thing for the sustainability is the protection of the intellectual property rights. And we have 4 help desks, one in China, one in Southeast Asia, one in Latin America, and a new one in India that is not present here on the side. And then there are more traditional events that are matchmaking. One very interesting initiative is the internationalization of clusters. So cluster of SMEs, not a single SME going abroad, but entire clusters trying to cooperate with clusters in different countries. And then, of course, what the government does the best or the most, producing paper and data. So we, of course, have a market access and information, the repositories that can be consulted by SMEs to, well, to acquire more information. Here, there are some useful links that you might want, especially the last one, which is the overview of EU instruments contributing to the internationalization of European businesses. And really, there are a lot of information there that you can see. Well, this was all from my side, and I will stop here. Maybe we can take some questions later on or follow other presentations. Thank you, Ulrike.
Igor, for sharing your presentation. So maybe from what you're telling us is that sustainable aspects, they are part of all these different instruments, but are there also some specific instruments on sustainable aspects and on developing countries to promote the international development of European SMEs in developing countries?
Yes, of course there are, and this is, let's say, of course, the first interest is to favor the internationalization of European SMEs, because even though European SMEs are among the most active internationally in the world, there are only 26% of them that they are doing business internationally. And if we go outside the EU, this number goes to around 10%. So it's really a low number of SMEs that are doing international. Also, when we are talking about SMEs, we have to understand it's a big mess of the different companies that we are talking about. So of course, the hairdresser, local hairdresser might not be able to go international, but nevertheless, they also are part of these SMEs. Now, going back to your question, these are, for example, if we look here at number 6 or number 7, they are instruments for pre-accession assistance. So these are countries that are negotiating the access to the European Union. So of course, European Union wants to make also local SMEs more international, more stronger, more developed. But there are also specific instruments for, let's say, developing countries or countries that are less industrialized. And these are the main let's say, main instruments for what concerns developing countries.
Thank you very much, Igor, for providing this European perspective. I will now give the floor to Mr. Pedro Novo, who is the Executive Director of BPI France. BPI France, it's a French public investment bank who supports entrepreneurs in their growth and their international development. So Pedro, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Enrique, and good evening or good morning or good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to say that I'm very happy to have this opportunity. So thank you to share with you some of the experiences we have gained from supporting French SMEs that are expanding internationally from France. So this is a specific experience, but very close with what we heard before in Germany or in Netherlands. You will have very concrete and high quality examples just after me, so with the next speakers. And as I have only 5 minutes, I understand I would like to share with you a quick summary of the issues we are facing with BPI France regarding the support to SMEs. And supporting SMEs actually has been my professional passion for the last 20 years. So as you said, BPI France is the French Public Investment Bank, which has become over the last years the one-stop shop for entrepreneurs with a diverse and vast range of solutions offered to our customers throughout our 50 local branches on the field in every region of France. This is so a seamless experience for entrepreneurs, and regarding international support, they can find in each branch financing, insurance, and support and guidance. We are also involved abroad with international institutions by being committed to supporting European entrepreneurship and innovation policies and cooperating with our counterparts internationally. For example, we are helping Ivory Coast to create a kind of BPI for entrepreneurs in West Africa who want to develop abroad and expand their company internationally in the region or in innovation in their country. So, as I said, we also hold BPI France Insurance Export, which is the French export credit agency. So it's an ACA institution. It aligns with our mission to boost French exports and reinforces our global range of products by offering a wide array of export solutions for French companies. So at the end of the day, the secret sauce is definitely here. All in one, and seamless entrepreneur experience. So our vision, first of all, as a bank that has become over the years the one-stop shop for French entrepreneurs, we have become quite acquainted with good practices relevant to a firm that wants to go abroad. I could sum up those good practices in 3 words: time, cash, and people. With that being said, I could easily end my intervention here now, but I know that you want to learn more about that. So those good practices are just words, that's clear, but even words that you must have already heard somewhere else. But this is why we need to go in much more clearly. So the first one is time, because you need time to be ambitious to go abroad, and especially in developing markets. We have plenty of opportunities for our companies. Whatever the market you are aiming for that, you need time. You need time to figure out the market, to value the compatibility of your product and your firm, to know your consumers, and for that you need to be guided. At BPI France, we help the firms to go abroad, as I said, through accelerator programs, for example, consulting services with the private sector, either with the public sector, especially for executive, and training for CEOs. We create events, clearly, and very pragmatical events that encourage networking between entrepreneurs and international missions, also produced by BPI France and our partners and friends from the French team France Export and the private sector to help businesses discover foreign markets and implement their company in those markets. All of this takes time, but eventually, this is how I got to accelerate over 600 companies, organized over 1,200 consulting missions last year, and there were 100 networking events. And the second word, I have to be much more faster. So the second word was cash to go abroad, and you have to know where to find it. Of course, this part represents our core function. We are a bank, so we provide money. we help stimulate French businesses' growth by offering loans, that's clear, providing guarantees, and awarding buyer credit and supplier credit. We make these solutions accessible to SMEs in France and to their clients, either SMEs or the public sector in developing countries or in Europe, for example, to encourage the business between France companies and companies coming from abroad. So cash matters, and it matters even more in the direct moments such as the sanitary crisis has been the last 2 years. We have registered a historical level of activities, and we have surpassed our level of investments from before the crisis. That's clear. While it took 7 or 8 years during the last crisis, the recovery of our economies and the mobilization of the public institutions have been much more faster in the last months compared with the last crisis in 2010, and especially regarding export and internationalization, and especially with SMEs. And my last point will be definitely people. Being surrounded matters, so you need people to be successful, that's clear. And you need to be globally surrounded, as I said, when going abroad, to exploit and deliver your potential to its best. You need to attract the best candidates, the best people in your company. You need to maintain them mobilized in your company when you are SME and the CEO is doing everything inside the company. You need to be supported by new players in the company coming from abroad sometimes, the diaspora sometimes, or young people joining the project of the SME. So you need to believe in it, but you need people to believe in it too when you are the CEO. Therefore, our role at BPI is not to build, but to co-build everything with the company next to the firms and guiding them to go always further. We strongly believe, as a conclusion, in the power of cooperation and collaboration. It has been said before. And definitely, I think that it's very important for SMEs to understand that internationalization is definitely a way to accelerate transformation inside the company and to secure the development of the company. Export is not everything. You can be a local player, you can be distributed by a partner, you can buy a company. So you will have different ways to enter inside the market. You will have a presentation just after. But you need to understand that you will accelerate and definitely change a SME when you want to develop your company abroad. So that's why that's very difficult decision to take when you are a CEO in such a situation. And we are here to help them with money, guidance, insurance, and mindset. So thank you, Ulrike, but I tried to be clear as I can in this presentation.
Thank you, Pedro, for sharing your thoughts. So I have a question concerning some specific initiatives that BPI France is taking in different regions. So, for example, recently you have been very active in Africa. So maybe you can share some of your activities that you are doing more specifically for developing countries and, for example, in Africa.
Yeah. I was talking about events, for example. So we connect people. To be very simple, we connect clients with providers from France and clients in Africa. So we built an event in Africa in June. It was called Inspire and Connect Africa, whose first stage happened in Abidjan this year. 600 participants, 110 speakers, 3,000 business connections, 125 business meetings for the 23 members of our African Accelerator. We built, my second point about Africa, an accelerator inspired from our experiences in innovation, fully dedicated to development of business in Africa for SMEs in France. So we have 23 members in the first cohort, we say in French, of this accelerator. And this is a great success for them. They find business, They find people and they find financing through this accelerator. We try to unveil the real potential unknown most of time by the CEOs themselves. They don't know all the potential they have in their company. So we work very close to them to unveil this potential, and especially in Africa, when guidance is very important and connection and network. So just after, you will have all the toolbox with the financing, investment, and guarantee. You can have everything with flexibility, digitization, sustainable support, and so forth. But the first thing is to make them confident in themselves, to find a confident partnership, to find and to secure this partnership with local players. And at the end of the day in Africa, to make the French company an African company. If you want to be successful for a long time in Africa, you must become an African company for the next years.
Thank you very much. So we will now move to two entrepreneurs, two CEOs who are very passionate about their international development and who believe in internationalization. And we will start with Philippe Hérault, who is the president of Mixel Agitators, an industrial SMEs producing mixers and investing in foreign markets. So thanks, Philippe, for joining us.
Okay, thank you. I will try to share. Okay, is it okay? The sharing?
Thank you.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, how long can I speak?
2 hours.
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. So thank you very much to let me the opportunity to present Mixel and to present the way I am developing the international part of Mixel. Mixel is a manufacturer of mixers. We make the mixers, and we make the mixers for every kind of process. I will show you a few samples. We already have two manufacturers, two plants. The main plant is in France. In France, we make everything. This is the head office. We make the conception, the design. We manufacture, after sell, and so and so. We have another plant in China since now 16 years. And in this place, we only make the sales, local sales, and manufacturing and after sales. This is very important to note that the conception and the design is only made in France. We transfer data to the other factory. Global turnover is around 15 million euro, and actually 30% of this turnover, 35%, by the way, is made in China. But we can say that it's designed by Mixel, made in China, because it's exactly the same product that we make in China and in France. Our market is very, very large. This is a very good point when we want to export, because if I want to focus on a market, on a country, I can test different markets in the country. Most of the time, by the way, I try first my main market. I will show you which one is it, but I can add another market to complete the turnover of the country. The main markets are the pharma and health. You can see that all the medicines are made with by mixing different components. The cosmetics, the fertilizer and pesticides, agro-food, chemistry, and every new energy like biofuel, like biogas, old energy, nuclear plant. We also have some mixers in nuclear plant, in petrol and gasoline, oil. By the way, the main market for us actually is environment with the water treatment all over the world. This is the main plant in France, 25 years old. And this is a new plant in China, because the story is not so funny, but it was a good opportunity. Last year in March, the Beijing department, the Beijing buyer asked us to leave our factory and gave us 2 months to leave the factory, which was impossible. Then after discussion, we have more months, but we changed. We moved for 3 times bigger factory in Tianjin, and I will speak about this story of the story of my Chinese factory, my Chinese sustainable implantation. My experience was very long. I start 30 years ago to try to export from France. And at this time, the first market was Europe. And then I chose to go far and far from Europe to try to find new customers and to follow the big companies, new plants, which were in India, in China, and in South Asia. And then following this main customer, which were my customers from France, from my region, I'm based in Lyon. Lyon is a very big place for chemistry. So the first step was to follow my chemistry customers. And then I did have the opportunity to install some mixers in different countries. And the biggest one, and maybe the more difficult country at this time, was China. After spending 15 years selling from France to China and opening the market for the chemistry and for the water treatment, I spoke one day with my main customer in China, which was a water treatment French company, and I asked them, why do you buy mixers from my small companies? At this time, we were 30% only. Why do you buy some mixers from Lyon, from my small companies to export to China for your water treatment plant? And the answer was, because at this time, we didn't find here in China somebody able to make good mixers for us. Then it was the déclic. This time I did have two choices. One is to stay like that and to be very happy to export from France to these companies and wait to at the end of this exportation when these companies would have a new provider in China. The second choice was to be the one he was looking for in China. And then I decided in 2005 to open the factory in Beijing to provide my main customer, French customer in China. So I did that. We were 30, once again, we were 30% in France. The full company was 30% only. So it was a big deal, a big, how to say that? Maybe I was a little bit crazy, but I love that. I'm still crazy and I still love that. And it was a nice story during 2 years. But after 2 years, my customer changed. The people changed. And at this time, the new one wanted to buy from Portugal. Why? I don't know. So I lose my main customer suddenly without any technical or price reason, just a question of people. So it was very dangerous for my subdivision. And by chance, as I show you here, I have a lot of targets and a lot of different markets in every country. And then I make a rebound and I found a big order. I received a big order for Thailand for a paint plant. And I decided to manufacture in China all the mixers for Thailand, which was a good idea because we avoid the transportation cost the packing, the sea packing, which were very very expensive, and we avoid also the tax, the importing tax, because it was free of tax from China to Thailand. So thanks to this new market, I saved the company at this time, but during the same time, we tried to open our market with the Chinese company, not focus only on European or American companies, which are not very fidel. So we start working with the Chinese company, and thanks to our very high quality, very high brand, the design in France was a very good strategy, and we developed a big market with the Chinese companies. At this time, almost 100% of our turnover in China is made with Chinese companies. They appreciate a lot that we are in the place, a local manufacturer, but in the same time, a foreign manufacturer. They appreciate a lot because they know that our quality service is very high, our production is very efficient, and as it's a custom-made product, they are very happy with our way to design each time specifically our product. So this is actually, this company is for me a third of my turnover, but half my profit. And this is something very interesting when like last year, when the market is not so good. For example, last year, I wasn't able to export almost to any countries because we cannot move, we cannot visit the customers, and most of the time it's impossible to travel, and sometimes it's also very difficult to send some products. By the way, last year we have a good turnover in China because after the 2 first months in China where everything was closed, they start again with the market, with a good market, and we make a good turnover in China thanks to the fact that I was in place. Myself, I wasn't able to move in China. I wasn't able to build my new factory, but my team did it, and my team manufacture and deliver to my Chinese customer. So I can say that without this subdivision in China, I should have lost 1/3 of my turnover last year. Thanks to this subdivision, I won, and I won money. I tried some other sustainable implantation in different parts of the world. A few years ago, 10 years ago, I tried in Brazil to open not a factory, but a local company with people able to sell and to subcontract the manufacturing. I lose. I spent 15 years in China before opening my factory. And I tried to make the same thing in Brazil after only 1 year visiting Brazil. And my main error was not to know enough the Brazilian mentality. And so I thought it was very easy to work with Brazil and to develop business in Brazil. And by the way, it's for me, I think it's more difficult than in China. So I have had to close the company in 2015 after a very, very bad year, 2014, because in 2014, Brazilian people didn't work more than 1 month. You remember the football, Mondial football, the presidential election, and so, they didn't do anything. So I decided to close. I tried something else to open a sales office, a rep office in Vietnam, to have a sales representative in Southeast Asia. The subject is to deliver Southeast Asia through my Chinese company. And this is something very efficient because once again, I reduce the total cost thanks to the proximity that I can transfer by a train or by truck, and I can deliver in Southeast Asia without using boat or long trip boat. I can also deliver without tax, importation tax, and so we have a good success in Southeast Asia thanks to my Chinese factory. It's like a bridge, and I can move to China without moving anything and send from China to all this area. So for the moment, I can say that even if it's not easy at all, even if we can speak hours and hours about all the mistake I made in China regarding the people I choose to manage the company, regarding the way we try to develop the market. Anyway, at this time, this is a very, very good market. I have a young Chinese guy managing the company. And the best thing for us was that this guy spent 5 years in France, in my design office, to know Mixel by heart, to be a member of Mixel family. And now he's managing this factory with a real Mixel spirit and Chinese spirit at the same time. And this is maybe the key of the success for today. And I'm very, very happy to have this factory. The picture I show you is in the new plant 2 months after the moving this new plant. And as you can see, it's almost full. And we double the market of last year, this year. We doubled the turnover of last year in 2021. And maybe the problem we did have to move suddenly the factory, by the way, it was an opportunity because now we have a very, very nice plant to provide our customer.
Thank you very much, Philippe, for explaining your impressive development in China. So I have a question for you, following also the statement of Pedro. Do you think that today your Chinese subsidiary can be considered as a Chinese company? Or, I mean, Pedro was telling us that it is important if companies, SMEs, move to Africa in a way to become an African company. So would you say that your subsidiary now is functions in a way like a Chinese company?
100%. And I have the double advantage. It's a Chinese company, but with a French consideration, a French reputation, a French brand. And so I have the double chance in China, but 100% Chinese company, because all my people there are Chinese. They are speaking Chinese. And even the people in France who make the design are Chinese. So they understand 100% of the problems of the customer. They understand 100% of the inquiries. And they can exchange between China and France to optimize the design. So we are 100% Chinese company in China. And even in France, we are a little bit Chinese.
That's very interesting. Thank you very much, Philippe. We will now move to Mr. Rocher, who is the CEO of Export Entreprise and also the president of the think tank La Fabrique de l'Exportation. And so Etienne is the CEO of a company in the service industries offering international trade tax solutions. So Etienne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon. Very happy to join you in this panel. It's going to be difficult to add, interesting material after all these very valuable contributions, but I'll try. First thing I'll try to do is to show my full screen, but it's kind of lazy. Never mind. What I wanted to tell you in reality here in this short presentation is three stories. 3 stories of SME international expansion, service companies. One that was a failure. We failed in expanding some of our professional services to Belgium. One is a success. We managed to sell and expand our digital services throughout the world. And one is not yet a success, but something that we're working on, which is a company from Benin that I'm helping to expand in West Africa and in Europe. So I'll just go through these 3 slides. So the first one is when we were in the 90s doing professional services to help SMEs go international. We were doing it for French companies. And we had the chance to meet a credit insurance company from Belgium who said, well, your service is terrific. Why don't you bring it to Belgium? And we said, well, I was very excited. We were very proud. We were very, so it was an opportunity for us. And we started creating a firm. It was a small firm, but we were a small firm too. We were like 20 people or 30 people. And this operation in Belgium was with 4 people. We didn't know much of Belgium. We had a general idea. It looked like a very easy country, very close to Paris. Drive in or train in, train out. It's very easy. And initially, actually, we had a lot of success because the sponsor was really helping us with his own business ecosystem, reaching out to his clients, reaching out to his partners, and progressively, as the sponsor, throughout the years. A little bit like Philippe was telling, like when the sponsor effect was fading out, we faced the problem of going on with our own forces, on the market, and the market was difficult because it was made of actually 2 markets. Delivering a service is very language oriented, so you have to organize your team into French speaking and Dutch speaking on the other side, and so we spent a lot of energy. We had big problems hiring human resources, especially a good local executive. And progressively, we realized we're not increasing the business. We're still having a very small share of the business. After 5 or 6 years, we just terminated the operation. We closed the subsidiary, terminated the work contracts, or hired those people to move to Paris and so on. So it was a very, very sad experience. That was a failure. It was very costful also. The initial investment was never paid back, and the closing costs were very high. So here you can see all the many errors that maybe can give ground for discussion in the further steps of this panel. But typically, going into a market which you don't really know, where you don't practice the markets, and doing it alone were 2 elements that, of course, we've 2 key elements that explain why we failed. Now, on a brighter side, I will tell you how we now export our digital services. We are now a company of 40 people based in Paris and Singapore, and we produce what we call trade tech solutions, trade knowledge platforms or APIs. Cross-border business communities, either platforms or APIs. Anyway, we found an entry. Originally, we were contacted by a Moroccan bank who wanted us to develop the trade information portal, and we did that. And we've been doing this ever since for many, many clients throughout the world. The entry mode is different because here we were talking about digital. We don't have to, serve in person. It's not like a consulting service. But so SaaS managed platforms means that the platform is hosted on our servers and we manage it from A to Z. So we don't even have to install it in the web environment of the clients. And so that was immediately our entry mode. So now we could serve a company in Australia, a bank in Australia, or a company in Australia, develop the platform for them and run it from a server in Singapore, for instance. And we don't have to go to Australia so much. Actually, that's what saved us in this. It was saving us in this time where even going to Australia at the moment is not easy. APIs, which is like the new generation of remote IT services, is really also very helpful because it reduces the localization work, and so it's very much easier to export on a larger scale without traveling, without visiting. Well, we organized our expansion was very much based on outsourcing. We thought if we wanted to go global and reach out to what we reach out to now, it's like 35 countries, we're not going to have people in every market. We're not going to have subsidiaries. We're not going to have people on our payroll. So we found somebody to do the market intelligence. So we have permanent market intelligence, monitors the activities of the different banks. We mainly sell to banks and TPO, trade promotion organizations. We outsource the business development. So we have people who are consultants or part-time business representatives who meet the targets in different countries, in different markets, different regions. So they are located in different cities here, listed here. But the idea is that we travel much less. We don't do this crazy traveling, that going to Singapore, visiting two clients and coming back. But on the other hand, we don't have to have full-time people in every country. Like in Bogota at the moment, the guy is working 4 days a month, and that's enough. So it's fractional outsourced business development time. And when we have clients that require local implementation elements, we do it through partnerships. So it can be fintechs, it can be hosting companies, it can be any partner in the industry. So instead of doing a bilateral contract, you sometimes have to do a trilateral contract that includes all the partners in the deal. But this is much easier. Of course, it creates complexity to be three in the deal, but it's easier than having to create a subsidiary in China or a subsidiary in Indonesia every time we enter a new market like this. So the result today is that we serve probably a very, very large client base of typically in the banking business where we have been very successful, including biggest banks in China, in Japan, and so on. So here, it's a completely different model from the one we had before. It's much softer. When a country fails, we can pull out very easily. When a country is successful, we can push up. When we have a client, we can find a partner. So it's a very, very flexible and efficient way of expanding overseas. So this is also, the result somehow of the failure that we had faced before. So learning from that failure, we had engineered a completely different mode of developing. Now, I got married to an entrepreneur in Benin, and she was running a business of house decoration named Ayodele Design, and that's so I got involved into trying to help bring my knowledge in order to help this company expand. It's a small company in Benin. They have 6 people. It's artisanal work. It's not industrial, and so we've tried to develop a few, entry modes. There was already an entry mode of store distribution, but then we also tried to leverage on piggybacking by trying to, use exhibitions of African art or African exhibitions in Europe, whatever it's art or whatever the topic. But anyway, African exhibitions in Europe, and the museums that were hosting those exhibitions wanted to sell African stuff, and so we used that a lot to sell in the museums stores and in Europe. So exporting to Europe, the first export to Europe was really about exporting to the museum stores when they were running, when the museums were running exhibitions about African art or about Africa. And that was an interesting, first way of exporting, because they were paying up front, we're delivering, and it was an easy sale. And it's still going on very well, and reaches out now to the US, to Europe, and so on. And now the track that we're on is something that is e-commerce. Internet promotion and social network promotion is, of course, very, very easy and very efficient. But in West Africa, at the moment, selling via the internet is also easy. For instance, when you're in Benin, something very simple, but you can't really collect payments from Europe and from the US online, and it's strange, but at the moment that's a country where that is not distributed in the major payment system, online payment systems. So it's a very big handicap. You can sell to locally, you can sell to Côte d'Ivoire, but you can't sell to Europe and to the US. the marketplaces there are very poor, and they're not very efficient. They don't drive a lot of traffic. They're not very well done. They're not very, so they don't really do the job yet. So there's shipping issues. When we deliver to Nigeria, the border may be closed one day, and then we lose the client. And so there's a lot of instability in shipping schedules, which is something that people in the e-commerce, they don't really like. And the other thing is that it's difficult to run an e-commerce business when you sell artisanal products. Why? Because when you sell artisanal products, each product is slightly different from the other one. So when you post pictures of the products on the website, for people to buy it, then you get to have people, can be, frustrated because they don't get exactly the product that was in the picture. Well, that's creating a lot of trouble because people, when they buy this kind of stuff, they want to have exactly what they see on the picture, So anyway, all these experiences have brought me to, just bringing up 3 takeaways, very simple ones, and they were already addressed somehow in part 1. But typically, you see that it's not the size, it's not the money, it's not the market, it's not the offer, it's not the quality. It's really the international business knowledge that is the key factor of success of an SME. The managers, whether they have it or they find it somewhere, but if they need the international business knowledge, if they want to go somewhere and succeed, this is really critical. And the second point is that if they have it or if they find it, if they find that knowledge, well, with a little bit of patience, they can go anywhere. Honestly, this expansion in Benin, from the Benin company, we started it 1 year ago, and after already 1 year, we're already with successful piggybacking strategy on museums, and now we're having, maybe in 1 year from now, we'll have a successful strategy in e-commerce, and after 3 years, probably a new market entry will mode with startup. So typically, with patience, efforts, work, and so on, but also with a bit of knowledge. Honestly, it's very easy, and it's even easier actually, to be honest, for a SME in reality than for a big company. The decision making, the adaptation, the taking into account every small information from the market and taking it and transforming it into an asset or a marketing advantage or a transformation of the product is very much faster. The smaller you are, the more reactive you are. So the problem of the size has always been analyzed in terms of volume of production and being able to producing mass scale of products to cut down the prices, which is partly true. But on the other hand, sometimes we're just hiding another variable, which is just the knowledge, just the knowledge, because usually there's more people and more knowledge in the big companies, which is no longer true now that you have a lot of entrepreneurs that have very very big skills in international business and start a very small company. And the other thing is that investments is very often underestimated in terms of cost. People think I spend money, I have my return on investments, and if I'm successful, this is how it works. But people don't think, if I'm not successful, how does it cost to cut off, the investment? Closing a subsidiary is a very heavy and time-consuming and expensive and very destabilizing effort for a company. So the mother company sometimes gets, jeopardized by the closure of the subsidiary. And this is something that people, always have to add into the balance. How much does it cost to put out if it goes wrong? And that's why my recommendation from my experience is typically to try to mitigate every of this risk by partnership or outsourcing, whatever flexible solution that you can pull out, especially in a volatile world. You can pull out relatively quickly without you losing too much money or too much energy. Well, here are my recommendations, my thoughts. Rico, I leave it up to you.
Thank you, Etienne, for sharing this interesting experience. So also I have a question for you. Would there be a recommendation that you could make to policymakers? What can they do to improve the international business knowledge of SMEs and entrepreneurs?
Well, I think the first thing is to voice the message, to voice out the message that it is, it is not click and play, going for export. course. It's of course, when you're in policy, you want to make it look like it's easy because you're supporting FTAs, because you're supporting your own policy, because that's the way politicians speak about. So you could go overseas and you're going to be successful. If you say that too much, then people will underestimate the complexity, and they will underestimate what's one of the previous, the learning curve and the progressivity, and so they would just, fly in and find it easy, because at the beginning everything looks easy. People are always interested in, meeting a new potential counterpart. So. Well, I think the first thing is really not creating any message that would, as a consequence, underestimate the complexity, and focusing on the right messages. Somebody before was saying what companies want is, market opportunities and contacts. I've met those kind of companies and I've served them and I've tried to accompany them. Well, my first recommendation was always, what's the strategy, what's the entry mode? What's the exit mode? What do you want to achieve in reality? Or what can you achieve? What are you able to achieve given your resources and knowledge and so on? And so, because the risk with SMEs is that then you can, ruin their or jeopardize their destiny, by bringing them in markets where they have no potential of success. So I would say be cautious, emphasize on international business knowledge. And when it's possible, try to focus on promoting international business knowledge, educational, events or whatever that allow people to share knowledge together. Any kind of solution that does this, I think is very welcome.
Thank you, Etienne. We will now move to the academic perspectives, and we will start with Mrs. Noémie Dominguez, who is Associate Professor of International Business at IE Lyon, Jean Moulin, Lyon 3 University. So Noémie, some insights on the company with us.
Yeah, good morning, good night, good day, or something like that, depending on where you are in the world. So let me just share my screen. Okay, and it should be okay. Okay, nice. So thank you very much for inviting me to this round table. I will try to make it short because I think that we are 4 academics to talk today, and we'll be closing the session at 8. So in order to let everybody work, I will try to make it quick. So thank you very much. I was there was kind of interesting actually elements mentioned at the very beginning of the session, saying that today how we have to wonder how can SMEs contribute to the development of emerging economies. And when we talk about SMEs, we are not only talking about local companies, but also international companies. And so I will not explain anything about that, but we are in this post-COVID-19 era, and what we saw was that we have today approximately 600 million people that will fall under poverty or extreme poverty. So the question on how to develop how can SMEs contribute to the development and a sustainable development of local economies, it's a key topic. And what we saw also during this pandemic is that we need to build more collaborative and sustainable societies. So one way to do that would be, for example, to create public-private partnerships. And this is a solution that is highly enforced today highly implemented today by governments. The thing is that for SMEs, it's something that is quite hard to implement, and it's hard for them to form alliances. First, because there's a lack of transparency locally that might be problematic for them, because there's also what you mentioned, Igor, there's a lack of protection of assets that might also be a problem. And the last thing is that there's a lack of local connections. So how can we identify or build networks and relationships with local governments? So this is something that is also preventing companies, SMEs, from entering into these public and private partnerships. But the thing is that today we need to build more resilient and responsible business models. And what we see and what is interesting in that is that we have a changing paradigm. Now companies are trying to integrate the development goals into their business models. And we are moving from trying to have a neutral impact on local ecosystems to trying to have a positive impact on local ecosystems. And when I'm talking about ecosystems, I'm not only talking about the environment, but also local societies. And we have more and more companies, startups, or traditional SMEs that are trying to move to this, to have this positive impact. And the way to do so is that they are trying to include the local development into their business model. And I would just like to maybe to give an illustration of this trend. It's a company that is called Pan-Africa that I'm working with right now. So Pan-Africa, it's a French startup that has been created 5 years ago. By two French guys that do not have anything to do with the African cultures, but they were super impressed about the colors and the joy and etc. And it was something that was not present on the French market. So they decided to create a startup that would produce shoes inspired from African cultures, and they included into their business model from the very beginning the fact that they wanted to have a positive impact on local societies. So they wanted to build something in collaboration with local actors, using raw materials, fair raw materials, but also to build something that would be sustainable for both the partners, local partners, and the company. So they developed collaborations with local actors in Casablanca, Abidjan, Accra, and I always have trouble with this one, but Bobo Dioulasso, okay. So they are looking for actors that so they have a very careful selection of their actors, of their partners. They are looking for partners that have fair trade practices. So not only practices that are responsible, that are eco-friendly, but also they are putting a lot of efforts into finding actors that will also pay attention to social workers' rights, and that will also try to develop a fair way to produce. So they have 4 main partners. They are trying also to use raw materials that are organic and fair trade. And their objective is to make sure that the traditional expertise, the traditional know-how will not disappear, because one of the problems today in some African countries is that they have a lot of competition, a lot of actors coming from foreign countries. And then you have a lot of expertise that are completely disappearing because the local products are too expensive or something like that. So they are trying to partner with local actors that are defending these expertise. Something that is also interesting is that they are also enforcing they are trying to pay attention to for women empowerment. So what they do is that, for example, in the cooperative Zumba, the cooperative is hiring women. The problem of women employment is a very key issue in some African countries, in which women are suffering from very bad working conditions. So what they are doing is that they are offering them a job, a well-paid job, and women would be working for 4 days a week, and the last day they will be taking classes to learn how to read, how to write, how to count, how to measure. And the objective for them is to make sure that women will be able to develop their own business after that. So the final objective is not to retain employees and to retain talent, but to help them develop their skills so that they can become autonomous and leave the cooperative. And what they saw is that every 2 years, actually, people come and leave because they develop their own business and the business is sustainable. So the objective here is to avoid interdependency. One way to build a sustainable business and to develop sustainable societies, it's also to avoid interdependencies, and also to make sure that local communities are not dependent on foreign companies, but they are collaborating with foreign companies, and they can also survive in case the company go bankrupt. So they give them support to develop their own activities. I think they invest approximately 10% of their benefits into the development of women's skills. So it's quite interesting. And what they do to also have a positive impact is that, well, they make sure that the employees benefit from good working conditions. So it's something that would be basic for us in major economies, but just to have a contract and a minimum wage paid vacation, health coverage for them and their families, increased salaries when you work extra hours. Something that is also linked to what Etienne said earlier is that a way also to maintain long-term collaboration in the craft work. It's to make sure that they are anticipating a lot the orders, so that it would not put too much stress on local workers, but also ensure them a kind of regular flow of activity. So that's also something that is interesting. The objective is to work in collaboration. It's not to reduce the price as much as possible, because the raw materials they acquire locally, they are 4 or 5 times higher than the price that they would pay on the regular market. But the thing is that they are trying to engage into to have a strong social commitment and to be extremely transparent to the customers here in Europe. And what they do regularly is that they are also asking for external audits, and the results are made public on the website. It's an open source. And the thing is that these efforts of transparency and the efforts they engage into producing goods that would be sustainable and sustainable, also profitable for local communities, it allowed the company actually. So the customers were super kind of convinced about the relevance of this new business model, and it allowed the company to multiply by 8 the turnover from the creation to today. So if I had to maybe get some key ideas from this illustration, is that if you want to build something that would be sustainable for both the partners, for both partners in major economies and local economies, it would be to think about timing, think about long-term issues and not short-term profits, and to build long-term objectives in terms of cooperation. It's kind of a win-win relation, and I think that's it. Did I make it on time, Ulrike?
Well, thank you, Noemi, for sharing your thoughts. We will speed up a bit so that we have also time for the 3 other speakers. So maybe just one short question for you. Mm-hmm. What can other companies learn from this experience?
Well, I think that something that could be learned and that is interesting is that thinking about investing in Africa to reduce costs is not a good issue. If you think about building Africa today, might be let's say you may have a cheap labor force, but tomorrow it's going to be a huge market. And today, actually, when you think about the global warming and etc., keeping producing the way that we produce and behaving the way that we behave as major economies and major societies, it's not sustainable on the long term. So if I had to give a recommendation, it would be to think to have long-term objectives and collaborate, and to build win-win relations, and to try to push companies to develop local skills to be able also to benefit from local ideas.
Thank you, Noemi, for sharing your ideas. So we will now have Mrs. Maria Elo, who is Associate Professor at the Department of Marketing and Management at the University of Southern Denmark.
So, thank you very much, dear delegates, dear participants. I would like to take the opportunity, and I thank you for the opportunity to talk about transnational diaspora business and SME investment, because that is something that is very often forgotten. So I will try to make it short, and let's look at the investor actors and strategies. When we're talking about SMEs, we actually have transnational diasporas, their families, migrant persons. And then we have this interplay of people, place, and policy. So this is a people-centric view. We are looking at specific strategies that are perhaps very different from the normal SME strategies that we have heard so far. They might be altruistic, they might be linked to the remittances or to diaspora direct investment, or even to gaining a certain status in terms of visa, or just doing a classic innovation, a new business, and so forth. So there's a specific interplay that is different. When we're looking at that, we see that we have in transnational diaspora entrepreneurship different actors. We have migrants, we have their descendants that are spanning different environments, business environments, more than 2 countries typically. And we also have the triple win of human circularity, which means that these migrant origin people, they are contributing with both financial and also social and institutional remittances. And that is quite important in shaping, making that sustainable impact. They are also interesting because they are information brokers, boundary spanners, and they are connecting locations. They are the people who are fostering that knowledge transfer that has been very much emphasized today. And also they are doing internationalization in a multi-directional manner. They are also typically doing business, forms of business that are different. They have different perceptions. They have also different motivations and commitments. Also the so-called immigrant effect. When we are looking at where do they then do that kind of investment, this actually has more than one location. So it has the home country location, that is perhaps the country of origin of that individual. We have the host country investment, that is then the country of residence for the migrant person. And then we have the third category, which is very interesting because we have dispersed investments. We have transnational, we have location unbound, and also other multifocal forms of investment. So third countries, from Uzbekistan to US to China to Israel and so forth. Different, very different. Here is an example of developing host country business. And here we have the global local sectoral ecosystem from the post-Soviet Jewish diasporas from the Central Asia, a complete ecosystem in the host country. Within this ecosystem, we also see a very strong emphasis of the female entrepreneurship and they own SMEs that they have been developing. These SMEs, for example, are increasingly resilient and sustainable. They are attacking the mainstream markets from one side, and they are developing very specific transnational niche markets. When we're looking at entrepreneurship in this area, we have different motivations, values, resilience, and also the impact can be very different. This is another case, a Cypriot person who migrated for Finland because of love. There's now a family-owned group of companies. This company is the leading importer of Mediterranean food in Finland since '86. And it's also importing to other countries. This is an interesting company because it actually it punctuated the Finnish very consolidated foods market, and it has been able to set a foothold in there with more than 17 million euro turnover. And it is actually very much impacting both countries in terms of business, but in terms of food culture and the values used in business as well. So if we migrate for love, perhaps we actually have also investment with love. And this is actually borrowed from World Bank, Dilip Ratha, who is saying that remittances are dollars with love. When we're looking at the remittances here, you can see in the right corner, this is a very large sum that we have. And it's by the way, very much less impacted by the COVID crisis than foreign direct investment. And a big part of that is not going only for consumption, it's also going for funding entrepreneurial activities and SMEs. So when we are looking at the host home country dichotomy, we need to rethink. We have investment where we have special actors from diaspora, for example, transnational diaspora, because they have different motivations, different commitments. They go to places where others don't go. We also have the impact as economic agents that has been acknowledged very important. Then we have the second part, which is very much business related. We have internationalization. So the linkages between the host and home discussion, we have the invisible diaspora hand. So entrepreneurs who are internationalizing products and services, who are also acting as markets, channels, as innovators. And then there's a specific in-between advantage in shaping and doing business, as Jennifer Brinkenhoff has done. So if we try to wrap up very quickly, why is that so extremely important to look at diaspora? We have diaspora entrepreneurial ecosystems that are very much similar to entrepreneurial ecosystems. And these diaspora entrepreneurial ecosystems are needed for that investment allocation in that particular place. And this can form a development strategy using that diasporic investment, the entrepreneurship innovation, and the global channels. It can also be used in terms of generation of hubs, platforms, and ecosystems that foster the overall entrepreneurial activity and SME activity. And then we have the systemic challenges that then perhaps actually cut the impact, because if the place is not sustainable, suitable, the diasporas don't engage, they don't remigrate back, they don't keep their businesses over there. So as a kind of a final takeaway, I would say that based on the research we've been doing, we say there's a huge need for advanced global policy responses, so integrated, connected diaspora and startup visa systems that actually empower, allow for sustainable, inclusive, and equal ecosystems for all for participating in business. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria, for sharing your thoughts. So what would be your major recommendation? I mean, or for policymakers, what should be a major measure that they could take?
We have to look at the people status specifically, because there are a lot of bottlenecks currently in the mobility of people and having multiple roles, doing multiple investment in multiple places at the same time. At the moment, people are considered to be inhabitants in one place, and all the other regulations are actually not really supporting this kind of multiple participation or mixed participation. And this is what we found in our recent work that has a huge impact, especially for the vulnerable ones and especially for the vulnerable places as well. They are the least developed in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will now move to Mr. Pervez Kauri, who is Professor of International Business at Birmingham Business School, the University of Birmingham. So thank you, Pervez, for joining us.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I don't know where everybody is, but let's start. I will try to follow my two predecessors and be short and quick. So because I see the time is running out and we have important speakers behind me. So let's look at my slides. If I can find them, of course. Yeah, so I am in fact perhaps so far the one who is going to talk more about sustainable development goals and maybe less about SMEs. And I will also talk about the role of IB research, what we as IB researchers can do to see to it that SMEs and grassroots entrepreneurs are included in the internationalization efforts or internationalization policies by the governments. So if we try to see, this is nothing new for anybody, and I will not go through each and every one I wanted to, but at least 50% of these goals are directly related to SMEs and grassroots entrepreneurs, really, at least 50%, if not more. Unless we can, so my message is, unless we can really take care of the SMEs and marginalized communities, we cannot achieve most of these goals. So if we see that these 17 goals and these are to be achieved by 2030, which is, in my opinion, getting very doubtful every day, thanks to COVID and all. But the question is also that IB research has overlooked SMEs and entrepreneurs from marginalized community. We have already heard about 80–90% of economic activities in most countries is done by SMEs. And it's the same with the employment and so on. But we, IB researchers especially, are not dealing with it. We are mostly dealing with M&Es. In fact, IB research is considered synonymous to multinational enterprise research. So that's why we have to see how we can overcome these inequalities. And we believe that IB research and M&Es can play a role in reducing these inequalities and incorporating SMEs into mainstream economic activities, which we are not doing, neither policymakers nor researchers and nor businesses. By businesses, I mean multinational corporations. So what are the challenges? That why we are not doing that? Of course, the first challenge is that it is very, very difficult to wean M&Es from profit maximization. I will talk about one or two of my projects, but whenever we talk to companies, subsidiary managers in different developing countries, and we talk to them, have you thought about poverty reduction? Have you thought about including marginalized people into your economic projects development or so? And they say, Professor, we work for our head office. We don't work for the country. We get targets for 3 months, and we are all the time chasing targets. Poverty reduction or marginalized people or entrepreneurs from local society is not our issue. That is the local government's issue. So please don't ask us about it. So that is the situation. Governments are not able to. So how can it be done? Of course, it is the governments who have to control the MNEs and induce them to source local SMEs for their components, etc., and so on. So we have so many people before me has talked about value chain. So it is really possible for local governments to force multinationals to include local SMEs into their supply chain. Either they are suppliers of components, or they are distributors of their products in villages and towns, and so on. And the COVID-19 has really disturbed the momentum of achieving these SDGs, because more than the investment related to SDGs, which were really going very well and which were really taking the momentum, especially in developing countries, is really now broken. It has broken down, and the investments are down in 50%. In some developing countries, it's 70%. While on the other hand, while Western world has launched huge infrastructure projects to offset the impact of COVID, projects in developing countries are totally halted. And in fact, they are getting more into foreign debts, and they are now not at all thinking about sustainable development goals. So what role IB research can play then, if these are the challenges? Of course, IB researchers need to keep up the research on SDGs. As I said, as I wanted to go through different goals, but we can look at more than 50% of these goals cannot be achieved unless we start doing research, unless we start pointing this out, and unless we start looking at SMEs and entrepreneurs from marginalized communities, that how they can be included into mainstream economic activities. IB researchers need to look at activities of MNEs and what externalities they create for the society. This we have been talking about for the last 10 years, that we need to look at the externalities created by multinational enterprises for the society, and particularly in developing countries wherever multinationals go. Although some multinationals now claim to create value for stakeholders and not only for shareholders. Although they say, no, we take care of all our stakeholders, but mostly it is just rhetoric, believe me. It's just greenwashing, it's just rhetoric, it's just because they think that they can get more customers if they include that in their annual reports, or if they include that on their logos of rainforest on their products and this and that. So we really, it is our researchers' job to go into it and try to separate the rhetoric from reality, that what the companies are saying and what really is happening. So I will talk about, I said, one or two of my projects. This is our current project with Oxford University and Birmingham, where we are trying to develop a digital technology-based business model for inclusive development. Our main research question was, can we develop a business model that is needed to transform the benefits of technology into jobs and income for SMEs and entrepreneurs from marginalized communities? And we had done lots of field work. Almost 3 years have gone now, field work in China and Bangladesh. So in Bangladesh, we have developed, with a local partner, developed and launched an app, which is called Hate Hath in Bengali. In English, it will be translated hand to hand. So this is we have a very nice logo, like hands holding each other. And then that enables entrepreneurs and SMEs from marginalized communities to do business with each other and collaborate in internationalization activities, because we also believe, we have done earlier studies on collaboration for internationalization. So we believe that these smaller companies do not have the resources to go it alone. So they have to collaborate, they have to go international as a group. In the value chain, 2-3 steps go together and they go international. We have launched an extensive training program, 64 hubs we have created in smaller towns to train people on this app, to let them try it, how they can make very short videos, 2 to 3 minutes, and upload on the app so that other people can see what they can do, what they can sell, what they can, sometimes they can offer just courses in English. They can offer courses on how to make a very good dish, a very popular dish or whatever, and people can donate, or people can buy, or people can exchange things with each other. We did a survey also for more than 530 households in Bangladesh, 2,120 people. As you know, many people live in one household. And we did the survey before we did the training program. We introduced them to the app, and 1 year after that, then to try to see whether they are using or whether there is an impact or not. So findings are that yes, digital technology can provide an opportunity to capability enhancement and for small businesses, and if they want to internationalize. We have also concluded the community plays an important role, whether it is local government, whether it is local NGO, or whether it is some other local organization, they can empower the local communities. Technology could overcome challenges. We have also realized, this is our finding, important finding, that technology can really overcome challenges faced by these grassroots entrepreneurs, including illiteracy, information poverty. In fact, there is so much information poverty. They have so many good things. They want to do so many things, but they don't know how to find the information, where to go, who to talk. And this is a big issue. And including then continuously developing so easy to use technology. So in fact, COVID has been very good for this realization. Now, thanks to COVID, now everybody has realized that they have to really have digital technology capabilities if they want to do anything. These days, you cannot even go to a bank. If you go to a bank that I want to talk about my business, to have a loan, they say, oh, you first have to make an appointment. Okay, I want to make an appointment. Oh, that you have to make on online. So if I don't know how to go on online, I cannot even go to a bank. And in marginalized communities, this is a big, big issue. Then SMEs and grassroots entrepreneurs need to be supported. This is the policy issue for Ulrike. They need to be supported to pursue this value creation goal, and value creation not only for making money, but also in general for the society. I think I have just 1-2 more slides. I hope it's okay. This is our new project. We are starting in January. We just got funding for ESRC. Here the main question is, how can MNEs incorporate SMEs and entrepreneurs from marginalized communities and help them to create value and include them into mainstream activities in Latin America? This is in Latin America. So that call for funding was especially for Latin America. We believe that it will help not only MNEs, but also SMEs to create a sustainable competitive advantage. Our job is to convince the MNEs that in the long run, it will help you to be competitive, not only in that market, but globally. So you don't have to use rhetoric just for the sake of rhetoric. You can really show what you can do. I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Pervez, for sharing this very interesting projects with us. So what do you think that we can do as academics to promote research on these important topics? Because there is a lack of research, and
Yeah.
SME, sustainable development. So what can we do in academia to promote these topics?
First of all, the IB must realize that we have to look at the impact of multinationals not only on their bottom line, but also on the society. This we are not doing. So before these two projects, I had a project with Oxford and La Peranta and some other universities about poverty reduction, the role of multinationals in poverty reduction. And in EIBA and in EIB, we had panels also. In EIB, I think in Boston or New Orleans, we had a panel where we presented there were 5 work packages, 5 different universities, 5 different steps. And we presented, and after the presentation, 1 or 2 friends from the seminar panel came to me and said, Parvez, what are you doing? Poverty reduction is not a business man's job. We are Academy of International Business. It's not our job, poverty reduction and sustainable development you are talking about. This is not our field. So this is the situation. Ulrike, this is the situation. We don't even realize that this is our job. So IB research must do more research on these externalities of M&Es and how I have a table about how at least 50% of these SDGs can be related directly to activities of businesses. And so, of course, we should do more research on it.
Thank you. So we now will move to Mrs. Antonella Zuccella, who is Professor of Marketing and International Entrepreneurship at the University of Pavia in Italy.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Ulrike, and everybody. I will be very short because we are out of time. I want to say something about the development paths, the growth paths of SMEs. And in this slide, basically, I have concentrated my main message. Internationalization is a journey. And we need to be aware of which is the starting point of this journey for SMEs and which are the directions of growth and which is the destination which we hope can be a contribution to sustainable development in those countries as well. When we think of the start of this journey, a few data may help. We know that in Europe, a continent in which SMEs are very well represented, however, more or less 1/3 only exports. And not talking of the other entry modes who are definitively a minority. And their main focus is the region. Only a minority of SMEs as a global reach. However, on the other hand, if these previous data speak of limited participation of SMEs to global market opportunities, on the other hand, SMEs are more present than we think if we consider global value chains, because we have data that speak of a relevant role of SMEs in global value chains, even though they are not reported as exporters, because maybe they sell their components and products to other companies in their same country. And then these other companies take these products and components to global markets. So we have, in the end, a few questions about the participation of SMEs to global market opportunities. The first question is it possible to do more and to support more SMEs in this effort? As I said, 1/3 of these companies export. And however, in this 1/3, 1/3 again exports less than 10%. So a relevant number of companies of SMEs are marginal exporters, occasional exporters. So the question is there room for improving their participation to global markets? But there are more questions here, not only how to address marginal exporters, but also the potential exporters or the wannabe exporters. And finally, how to understand better the role of the hidden exporters, that is, those who are embedded in global value chains, and even if they are not reported as exporters. Talking about the growth directions, internationalization still shows a lot of promise and potential for SMEs, and we need to understand and leverage it more. But at the same time, SMEs are challenged by two other growth paths, that is sustainability and digitalization. Do the three directions go well together? Internationalization, sustainability, digitalization, or are they competitive growth paths? This, to me, is a big question in these days for policymakers and for SMEs. We did a study on a representative sample of SMEs, and I briefly summarize what came out. It's a very recent work just published. It came out that digitalization and sustainability are positively related, but they turn to be competing growth paths when the firm internationalizes. This means that these three growth paths are difficult to be pursued together at the same time because they involve resources, financial, human resources. So this is a challenge for policy making, for institutions. These growth paths need to be supported adequately. And so we have to consider that there is a challenge here and how to address it. What's the relation with the end of this journey, that is inclusive and sustainable growth in the host economies? Because SMEs, if they are adequately supported to grow along these three growth paths, they are bridges to host economies, and they find there, again, small and medium-sized enterprises, and between SMEs from host and origin economies, there is normally a better link because there is less asymmetry, less organizational asymmetry, and less cultural asymmetry. So SMEs are the ideal bridge to contribute to inclusive and sustainable growth also in the host economy, provided they are supported to grow along these three dimensions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonella, for sharing this study with us. So would you say that the region of Lombardia is supporting this sustainable aspects?
Well, I'm currently working for the regional government as a consultant to design these policies. I'm not sure they will listen to me, of course, but I'm doing my best to make my voice heard and providing data and providing also benchmarks from other regions. But you know, the future of Lombardy as a region depends on facing this challenge.
Thank you. Probably like many regions in Europe and outside Europe. So what can we say to wrap up our session? We can say that policymakers, they are providing incentives for the international development of SMEs. And we have this important topic of how can investments be more sustainable in both developed and developing countries. And if we would like to make some recommendations following our discussions, we could say that it's important to help SMEs also to become more global, to have this more local, and to have this local focus when they go international, because this local implementation is extremely important, and also the implementation in the local communities. And another important aspect is to help SMEs share their international business knowledge, because we have many successful SMEs, and it's important that they can share this information and this knowledge also with their peers and learn from each other. And we can also see that human issues are very important. how to recruit and how to deal with human issues and human development. And so definitely, I think we can conclude that we need more research on SMEs and their sustainable development when they go international, because SMEs are really specific. We can see it from our discussion. They're very specific in regard, if we compare them to multinationals, where we have a lot more studies and more research. So a great thanks to our panelists for this very interesting presentations and debates. And thanks also to Amelia and Kumi from UNCTAD for inviting us and for helping us for the organization of the panel. So thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you.
Hope that we get the occasion to continue working on these topics.
Thank you, Ulrike,
Thank you, Ulrike. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi,
Bye-bye.
for organizing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for your contributions.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ulrike and Noemi. Thank you so much. And thank you all for staying with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Great job. Great job, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Maybe we meet in some other sessions.